Imagine if Amazon had its own private army, larger than the entire US military. Imagine if Apple could pass its own laws, imprison its own critics, and start wars in foreign countries. Sounds like a dystopian sci-fi movie, right? But 250 years ago, this wasn't fiction. It was a business plan. And the most powerful company in history wasn't a tech giant. It was a trade group that became an empire, and its story is a terrifying lesson in what happens when corporate profit has no rules. Welcome to London, the year 1600. The British East India Company is born. Queen Elizabeth I grants them exclusive trade rights with the East. But this wasn't just a license to sell spices. It was a license to conquer. They started small, setting up trading posts. But in India, a land of fabulously wealthy Mughal princes, they saw an opportunity. The Mughal Empire was weakening. It was a corporate raider's dream. The company's strategy wasn't just to trade. It was to manipulate, to take sides in local conflicts, and to demand tax-collecting rights as payment. They went from being a company in a country to becoming the company that was the country. The company's big break came in 1757, at the Battle of Plassey. The British commander, Robert Clive, faced the Nawab of Bengal's massive army. But Clive had a secret weapon more powerful than cannons, a backroom deal. He bribed the Nawab's own military commander, Mir Jafar, to hold his forces back from the fight. The East India Company won a stunning victory with barely any casualties, and the prize, the right to collect taxes from the richest province in India, Bengal. And then came the true horror. The company's tax demands were so brutal, and its policies so focused on cash crops instead of food, that it triggered a catastrophic famine in 1770. Let that sink in. A corporation, accountable only to its shareholders in London, had just engineered the deadliest famine in human history up to that point. This was the ultimate hostile takeover. Back in Britain, the EIC was seen as a money-printing machine. Everyone wanted a piece. Its stock price went parabolic. But this insane wealth was built on a fragile, violent, and corrupt system. And in 1769, a credit crisis hit. The EIC was suddenly on the verge of collapse. But they were too big to fail. Their failure would have bankrupted the entire British banking system. So, they went to the government for a bailout. That's right, the Boston Tea Party, the spark of the American Revolution, was a protest against the monopolistic power of a corporation that had become a limb of the British state. So what happened to this corporate monster? The British government finally realized it had created a beast it couldn't control. After a massive Indian rebellion in 1857, the British government dissolved the company and took direct control of India, beginning the era of the British Raj. But the East India Company didn't die. Its DNA is woven into the modern world. It pioneered the corporate lobby, the idea of too big to fail, and the use of financial power to achieve political and military ends. When you see a massive corporation wield immense influence over government policy, or when a bank is bailed out by the taxpayer, you are seeing the ghost of the East India Company. It was the first entity to prove that a corporation could not just influence a nation, but could be the nation. And its story is the ultimate warning of what happens when we let profit become the only god. From the debt that toppled a kingdom, to the corporation that became one. This is the hidden history of power. In our next video, we ask an even more dangerous question. What if an entire country was just a front for one man's private bank? We're diving into the story of the Medici family that didn't just rule Florence, they invented modern banking and bought the papacy. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it.